Travis Wayne Goodsill. One of the problems of getting a little bit of knowledge, as you suppose, is that you make the mistake of viewing everything else in life, or in the subject, through the same lens of the one piece of information you learned. For example, if you grow up Mormon, the church tells us that Joseph Smith translated the Book of Mormon by the gift and power of God. And so everything else with the founding of the church, Joseph Smith, all the way up to Nelson, therefore is interpreted under that lens. If, however, you get information such as the church coming out and revealing that, there were rocks in a hat, and you say, well, how is that a gift and power of God? That seems more like witchcraft. And so then you read D. Michael Quinn's book, Mormonism and the Magic Worldview. And you go, yep, I knew it. Witchcraft. Joseph is a witch. I'm not sure I want to be that anymore. And so everything else in the church, yeah, it's witchcraft. Want nothing to do with it, I left. And you go around telling other people, you heard about the Mormon church? Yeah, they're witches. Joseph was a witch. You looked at rocks in a hat. And then you listen to Stevie Nicks and her song Crystal for Practical Magic, or her Dreams with Fleetwood Mac. And you go, yep, that's Joseph, all right. And sure enough, I found it in Scripture. Celestial kingdom, when you go there, everybody gets a crystal ball. Witchcraft. And then others will take that same information, not associate it with witchcraft, because they don't read D. Michael Quinn's book, they don't know anything about witches, and they say, oh, yeah, fraud. I knew it. Joseph Smith is a fraud. He's just trying to make money. So everything that Joseph did is now interpreted through the lens of Joseph as a fraud trying to make money. And then, see, there's lots of different lenses. Because then there are those who find out that linguistic analysis showed that Sidney Rigdon is the major author of the Book of Mormon. And so that tends to confuse people, because Sidney Rigdon doesn't join until December of 1830. Solomon Spaulding's manuscript, they say, oh yeah, that's how it happened. Sidney Rigdon got Solomon Spaulding's manuscript. They're in Pittsburgh. Bada book, bada boom. And they don't think, well, wait a minute. No, he may have had a post office box at the same post office as Solomon Spaulding, but they were never there at the same time. And they don't think about how Sidney Rigdon then came into contact with the Smiths. People just stop once they get a little bit of information. Sidney Rigdon's the major author of the Book of Mormon. Yeah, it's all a fraud, being lied to, want nothing more to do with it. And I'm going to share with you how to research rather than just stopping and coming up with a conclusion with your small sampling of information. Because that's a fallacy. Small sampling. You got to get more information, connect the dots together. And this deals with 116 pages. There are Mormons who say, oh, I wonder what was on the 116 pages. And we're most likely going to get it from the angel Moroni, even though Joseph always called him Nephi, in the millennium. And, wouldn't that be exciting? We just have to wait for Nelson or Oakes or Ballard or whoever down the chain is the millennial prophet while Jesus reigns on earth. And so, yeah, Mormons do think like that in regards to the 116 pages because of the lens that the church has given them. It's similar to beer goggles. Yep. Or Kool-Aid goggles. And so it's necessary when you're researching a historical event that you have yourself separate pieces of paper for different people, for different places, different dates, and different events, so that you can see tie-ins and crossovers and discount suspicions that don't pan out. And with 116 pages, we already have to assume that you've obtained the linguistic information, that the Book of Mormon was not written by Joseph Smith Jr. Did I give the ending away? And so then we have to say, okay, the 116 pages, however, they don't know who wrote that. So we can assume, if Sidney Rigdon's the major author, that he wrote the original 116 pages. But we do know, because of Martin Harris's testimony, that Joseph Smith, with Martin Harris as scribe, did write 116 pages. So Joseph Smith did have access to them. But the question is, since Joseph Smith didn't write it, was it Sidney Rigdon who wrote the original, and how did they get to Joseph Smith Jr. in harmony, and who rewrote them? Because it's not Sidney Rigdon. And this is where you check your pages and find out the answer. I have to give you another cheat. Harmony, Pennsylvania is north of Pittsburgh. It's in between the farm and Ohio, where Sidney Rigdon was. There were roads that would cross through. Sidney Rigdon, when Joseph Smith was in Harmony, Sidney Rigdon moved to the town right next door to the southwest of Harmony. But the history, the 1838 version, throws us for a loop, because it says Harmony Susquehanna River Pennsylvania. Susquehanna River is not north of Pittsburgh. It was way over by the Bainbridge jail that Joseph got arrested for on the 20th of March, 1826, for which the Mennonites, again I'm giving you cheats, said, "We don't want you in our church because you're a glass looker." When his child died, he loses the 116 pages. Mennonites now kick him out of town, not just out of the church. And he has to take Emma and the Hales with him. So they're not in Susquehanna. We read in the Doctrine and Covenants that Joseph was at the farm when he's telling God, the Lord, that he lost 116 pages. At the farm? Well, Dad's at the farm. Huh. But a woman wrote a book about Lucy Mack, how she was the glue that held the family together because Senior was a drunken bum who had no religion in him and was a failure in business. I'm sure she's not a feminist, alt-right feminist. And so, with that in mind, what is contained in the 116 pages? Well, we have a tree of life. We have an identification of Egyptian and Hebrew. Where's the Utah Lighthouse Ministry? Seriously? Sunstone. Why is that not at the top? It should be highlighted because I've seen it before. PDF. Sunstone. No. Okay, let's do Utah Lighthouse Ministry directly. There it is. What? By his mother. No! I'm taking too long to find this. Google. Scholarly Archive. Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saint Mag. No. Why? Book of Mormon Central? No. LDS Living? Okay, it has it. We'll go with that, I guess. Alright. So where was I? We need to look into Joseph Smith Sr.'s life. He's a part of church history. He's the father of Joseph Smith Jr. If you ignore him and his history, you're not going to get the full lens necessary to see clearly. Your lens is going to be incomplete and inaccurate. And so you go to Joseph Smith Sr. in Wikipedia, born July 12th, 1771, and you go, Oh, okay, 5 years before the Declaration of Independence, 1776. And he died September 14th, 1840. So 4 years before Joseph Jr. died. That's important for other research in the final years of Jr. And so then you keep reading. He was one of the 8 witnesses. So he is involved in church history. A family member is a witness, but not one of the 3. One of the 8. And then they incorrectly put golden. Nope, it's gold. It needs to be corrected. Even though it is blue, so that you can hover over it. According to Latter-day Saint belief, no, the gold plates. 1838 version says gold plates. It needs to be gold. That is incorrect, Mormons, whoever put that in there. He was the first patriarch, 1833. What does a patriarch do in the church? Speaks on behalf of God for your life. The Lord of the Church of Christ. Oh, good for them. They put the correct name. It was not renamed Church of Latter-day Saints. Joseph Smith referred to the church in that manner in a talk. He didn't declare, I am changing the name of the church to the Church of Latter-day Saints. Nor did he give a declaration that I'm changing it to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Brigham Young claimed that he said that. The actual talk that he gave is very clear that all he's doing is saying it's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He didn't rename it. It wasn't some official change. Because articles of incorporation require that you officially change the name if you're going to change it. Not done. Brigham Young was the first to incorporate the church as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in the Salt Lake Valley in 1852. This is information that you need to know, because otherwise you're going to see through Mormon fuzzy glasses and get incorrect information. I'm most likely going to be putting this up tomorrow, so I'll do it tonight. Whether I save it tonight, it'll depend on how long this goes. It's looking like it might be a long one. And so this is how you're able to correct the incorrect information that you come across, is by knowing the truth. See, because you can't just say, well, I don't know, the church says it was renamed, that Joseph renamed it. I don't know what to believe. No, you can know what to believe. There are certain realities that have to happen. You don't get to pick and choose your own opinion as to what truth is. And so this is a business thing, but it's something that, deal with this, that even though it's not your area of expertise, it's something that you need to be aware of, to search for, because there is no incorporation by Joseph ever, anywhere. No state, no city, town, nothing. No incorporation. He didn't do it. And so, yeah, that needs to be understood. And then when you get to Sidney Rigdon, after Joseph is assassinated, What's the name of Sidney Rigdon's church? The same as it's ever been. The same as it's ever been. The same as it's ever been. Church of Christ. And so we keep going. He was a member of the first presidency. Okay, so he was the first patriarch. Then he was a part of the first presidency. Interesting. Who else was made part of the first presidency? Sidney Rigdon. So you'd have your things, the people, and then the events. First presidency established with Joseph Smith Sr. and Sidney Rigdon. And then you'd see on either of those so that you can then go to the event and see the connection, the crossover. And then you read, he was a Freemason in Ontario Lodge number 23 of Canandaigua, New York. You then have to go down to his early life, where it says, in the second paragraph, he was raised to the degree of Master Mason on May 7th, 1818. When did he get to New York? He was in Vermont. They don't even show Vermont, do they? They show born in Topsfield, Massachusetts. There it is. When he married Lucy Mack in Tunbridge, Vermont. You should also be checking maps so that you can see where all of these places are, such as Harmony versus Susquehanna. It used to be called Harmony until the post office came in and said, no, we ain't having two Harmonies in the same state. It became Susquehanna River. You can go to the Susquehanna River page, the Susquehanna County, I think it's called, where I found that information and did the video on it. It was changed before the Smiths even arrived in New York. And so Joseph Smith also could not have gone there because it wasn't called Harmony then. But you can see why he was sent there from the farm, but that's a different subject. We're talking about the 116 pages and how Joseph Smith Sr. is the author. Now you got to study Freemasonry, because he was a master mason. So you got to figure out, what do master masons do? And you'll Google search it and you'll find out that the guy named William Morgan is said to have published a book about the first 3 degrees or first 3 ranks of Freemasonry. And of course you have to do research on William Morgan, and then you'll realize, oh my goodness, we've got a place crossover. He was also in Canandaigua, New York, when Joseph Smith Sr. was a Master Mason. And so part of the 116 pages involves the book of Jacob, where there's brethren ado, which you would do the research and find the mystic tie by a Scottish Rites Mason. But you'd go, wait a minute, Ontario Lodge number 23 of Canandaigua, New York was York Rites. What is Scottish Rites doing in the Book of Mormon? And then you'd learn that Freemasons use symbol code for communications. And you'd know in advance that the Doctrine and Covenants had made a level of decoding because the Doctrine and Covenants was coded. 1981 version came out with some decoding. You can find that on the Wikipedia page. You'd also learn that the Yorkites have Knights Templar with gold plates in Egyptian. And the bloodline, Holy Grail. That's different than a Trinity God. This is a mortal man bloodline. Mortal parents, mortal children. So see how deep we're getting into this? Why isn't the church talking about any of this? Because Nelson told us the 1838 church history has to be history in order for Nelson to legitimize his authority. Because if it's code of Knights Templar burying gold treasure plates in Egyptian in the ground and in caves about the latter days, about the coming of the Messiah, the bloodline, Holy Grail, Nelson's authority goes bye-bye. And then there's something that's not even covered here. What religion was he? This is why the female author of the book about Lucy Mack said that Joseph Smith Sr. is a lazy bum who was a wicked man, wasn't really religious. So I'll give you a cheat, because the church won't tell you, and you have to have knowledge of it. And this comes from the Doctrine and Covenants that was decoded, actually. Oliver Cowdery was said to have the gift of Aaron, the rod of Aaron, technically, I think it was. Now it's the gift of God in our decoded Doctrine and Covenants. What? I mean, it's bad enough that we found out that Joseph Smith had one rock, even though South Park exposed the 2 rocks. And the church comes out with a third one that's not even the 2 that South Park exposed. And so now we're finding out that Oliver Cowdery had a rod, the iron rod, and that tree of life. That's strange. How does the tree of life and the rod fit into this story of church history? Well, again, you'd have a thing for Oliver Cowdery and his family, pages for the family members, and where they lived. They were also in Vermont. You would find out that the Cowderys were right there by the border, and then you've probably heard about Ethan Smith, who wrote View of the Hebrews, and that's their religion, is Congregationalists. And you'd know the genealogy, that the Cowderys are cousins to Lucy Mack, and you'd realize that at the time there was a Congregationalist by the name of Nathaniel Wood, who technically was excommunicated from Congregationalists, but that's the lens he used as he formed his own organization called the New Israelites. And so the New Israelites were a radical sect. You have to learn to remove all adjectives. You need to stick to the facts. Don't let people influence your emotions to fog your glasses. And so Nathaniel Wood sets up shop to the smaller town in between the Cowdreys and where the Congregationalist church was. And he calls it the New Israelites because he believes that he and his members are literally the descendants of the 10 tribes of Israel. New Israelites. They believed that Hebrew was the language of the angels. And so then you have to have an understanding, is it just Hebrew that they learned? Or was it something else that they learned? Because there's the tree of life in the 116 pages. And you would come across what's called Jewish mysticism that utilizes Hebrew, but it's code. There's that code again. And you realize that 1835 edition came out before Joseph Smith got the Egyptian papyri, before he started working on the papyri. And looking at the Wikipedia page for the code words that were decoded in 1981, you see that they saw a match with some of the words on the papyri. And so there was a knowledge of Hebrew prior to the papyri and prior to Joseph Smith Jr. learning Hebrew, officially, the language. Because after getting the papyri, Joseph Smith wanted to learn Hebrew. And grammars and lexicons and dictionaries, whatever, were obtained in Hebrew and Greek. And they tried to find a teacher in Hebrew. He bailed on them. And so they were able to get Rabbi Sykes. That's why Rakiang is in the facsimiles rather than Rakia, which is more commonly understood for the firmament or sky in the creation story. And so you have all the timing set up on your events and dates pages to look for crossovers so that you can get the timing correct, so that you know that the Hebrew on the papyri explanations came from Joseph's prior knowledge of Hebrew before learning Hebrew. The coded Hebrew of Jewish mysticism. And so as I told you about, Joseph Smith had dreams, which are called Tree of Life dreams. Let's see, okay, here's the 1811 account recorded in Lucy Mack Smith's history. Ah, so you want the unedited version of Lucy Mack Smith's history. It is now available. The church had only allowed the edited version. And so, here's part of it. The Tanners have a whole page, and I couldn't find it quick enough. It was taking too long to find. It says, I thought I was traveling in an open, desolate field, which appeared to be very barren. As I was thus traveling, the thought suddenly came into my mind that I had better stop and reflect upon what I was doing before I went any further. So I asked myself, what motive can I have in traveling here, and what place can this be? My guide, who was by my side as before, this is the desolate world, but travel on. The road was so broad and barren that I wondered why I should travel in it. For, said I to myself, broad is the road and wide is the gate that leads to death, and many there be that walk therein. Well, he knows the Bible. Oh my goodness. But narrow is the way and straight is the gate that leads to everlasting life, and few there be that go in thereat. Traveling a short distance further, I came to a narrow path. This path I entered, and when I traveled a little way in, I beheld a beautiful stream of water, which ran from the east to the west. Of this stream I could see neither the source nor yet the mouth. Where's the tree? As my eyes could extend, I could see a rope running along the bank of it, about as high as a man could reach. Dude, read the rest of the story. Oh. Dude, man, bro. This is horrible. Who did this? Where's the tree? That's why I want the Tanners. The Tanners had the tree. They had the full text. None of this comparing with the Book of Mormon thing. Know why? I don't want Book of Mormon Central. Those guys are evil. Latter-day Saint Mag. We don't want the church. They lie. No, that's the same guy that... Signature books. Don't want Fair Mormon. Scholars Archive, BYU. No, I'm pretty sure that's going to be somebody criticizing them. Archive, okay. H. Michael Marquette Papers. This. Waste of my time. Moroni as Angel? No. The Entheogenic Origins of Mormonism. Mag, Digital Commons, Rewriting Eden. Where are you guys? Let's do dreams. Third hour? Nope. No. Sunstone? C. Jess Grossbeck. Okay. Yeah, this seems to have it. It's sunstonemagazine.com/wp.r-content/upload/sbi/articles/064-22-29.pdf. Alright. I'm pretty sure I have this already in my file somewhere. So yeah, trying to find out. Oh yeah, Mike and Peggy Fletcher Stack. It's the birth of James Andrew Stack. If you don't know Peggy Fletcher Stack, she, I guess, is still working for the Salt Lake Tribune. No, this is Alvin as a temporary solution to the... Okay, no, this is not what I'm looking for. 1811 he moved. Dream continues with a spacious building standing opposite the valley. Yeah, you're not telling us, you're summarizing it for us. So, yeah, we want the source document, dude, man, bro. Downloaded it again just in case. Scriptorium Blogorium. Perfect. There it is. Scriptorium blogorium.blogspot.com/2012/09/Joseph-Smith-Seniors SRS-dream-of-tree-of-life.html. Alright, here we go. The full account. I thought I was traveling in an open, desolate field, which appeared to be very barren. As I was thus traveling, the thought suddenly came to me that I had better stop and reflect upon what I was doing before I went any further. So I asked myself, what motive can I have in traveling here? And what place can this be? My guide, who was at my side as before, said, "This is the desolate world, but travel on." The road was so broad and barren that I wondered why I should travel in it. For, said I to myself, broad is the road, and gate leads to death, and many a narrow way. Traveling a short distance further, I came to a narrow path. The path I entered, and when I had traveled a little way in it, I beheld a beautiful stream of water, which ran from the east to the west. Of this stream I could see neither the source nor the mouth, but as far as my eyes could extend, I could see a rope running along the bank of it, about as high as a man could reach, and beyond me was a low but very pleasant valley, in which stood a tree, such as I had never seen before. It was exceedingly handsome, insomuch that I looked upon it with wonder and admiration. Its beautiful branches spread themselves somewhat like an umbrella, and it bore a kind of fruit in the shape tree. There we are. Like a chestnut burr, and as white as snow, or if possible whiter. I gazed upon the same with considerable interest, and as I was doing so, the burrs or shells commenced opening and shedding their particles, or the fruit which they contained, which was dazzling whiteness. I drew near and began to eat of it, and I found it delicious beyond description. As I was eating, I said in my heart, I cannot eat this alone. I must bring my wife and children, that they may partake with me. Accordingly, I went and brought my family, which consisted of my wife and 7 children. We all commenced eating and praising God for this blessing. And so, of course, you've done the papers to have all the children with their pages and such to check for crossovers. And the meaning of the names. Alvin is a completely different source origin for meaning than Hiram. and you got to check the original spelling of Hiram versus after 1826's spelling, which had to give the original birth certificate spelling when Hiram was in jail. And Wikipedia misses that. They don't link Hiram because it's spelled different. Nobody knows that it's Hiram because it uses his birth certificate spelling. A list of Joseph Smith in court, something like that. Joseph Smith in the prison system or something like that for Wikipedia. Let's see. And we all commenced eating and praising God for the blessing. We were exceedingly happy, insomuch that our joy could not be easily expressed. While thus engaged, I beheld a spacious building standing opposite the valley, which we were in, and it appeared to reach the very heavens. It was full of doors and windows, and they were all filled with people who were very finely dressed. When these people observed us in the low valley under the tree, they pointed the finger of scorn at us and treated us with all manner of disrespect and contempt. But their contumely, were utterly disregarded. I presently turned to my guide and inquired of him the meaning of the fruit that was so delicious. He told me that it was the pure love of God, shed abroad in the hearts of all those who love him and keep his commandments, and he commanded me to go and bring the rest of my children. I told him that we were all there. No, he replied, look yonder. You have 2 more, and you must bring them also. How many more did Lehi have? Jacob and Joseph? Yeah, Jacob and Joseph. No, he replied, look yonder. Upon raising my eyes, I saw 2 small children standing some distance off. I immediately went to them and brought them to the tree, upon which they commenced eating with the rest, and we all rejoiced together. The more we ate, the more we seemed to desire, until we even got down on our knees and scooped it up, eating it by double handfuls. After feasting in this manner a short time, I asked my guide what was the meaning of the spacious building which I saw. He replied, it is Babylon. It is Babylon. It must fall. The people in the doors and windows are the inhabitants thereof, and scorn and despise the saints of God because of their humility. I soon awoke, clapping my hands together for joy. Ta-da! And so, by knowing about the code of Jewish mysticism called Kabbalah, as I've done the videos recently, explaining the code with the Tree of Life, Nokeraton, Tamara, Gematria, and I went over with the Tree of Life how there are 10 points on the tree with 18 lines connecting the 10 points. 18 is for life in the code of Jewish mysticism. 10 is for perfection. 10 and 18 is 180. Joseph Smith, Cook was assigned to do the Joseph Smith Remembrance, and Cook knows nothing of it. He didn't even refer to Oakes's book. Nonetheless, the church did a token thing, but I did the video tribute to Joseph Smith Jr., as I do every year. And it was an inside job. Let's just put it that way. Because otherwise, to talk about it would be a whole video for hours on its own. And so you have to do the technique that I've told you about so that you can understand that it was an inside job. That Joseph was betrayed by his brothers who paid to have Joseph Smith assassinated, betraying him, like Judas. As you see Joseph Smith knowing exactly who it was who was going to betray him and have him murdered. If you go through the Joseph Smith papers, which are now available for us, but you have to search to find those information. But July, was it 12th? 1839. In understanding the context, this was after Brigham Young exalted himself to be president after chasing out and excommunicating, without the authority to do so, Thomas B. Marsh. Joseph Smith gets out of jail, comes back to the Saints, and finds that all hell broke loose since the previous year when he was arrested. That's the Liberty Jail time, in case you're wondering. And so it is this direct plagiarism that you can now confirm that Joseph Smith Sr. is the missing author. He rewrote what Joseph Smith had Martin Harris destroyed. And so that's why you see Solomon's Temple being built by Nephi after he flees from his brethren. This is why you see a repeated Exodus pattern throughout the Book of Mormon. The destruction of Babylon. 116. Not decoded. There it is, right there. But in the Book of Mormon, it's Jerusalem destroyed by Babylon. But in Doctrine and Covenants 116, it's Babylon that's going to fall, even though it already fell with the Persians. You see what he did? You can look at his dreams and see how he tried to encode them in the Book of Mormon. And so now you know, not only was the Doctrine and Covenants encoded, so was the Book of Mormon. So was church history. Amen to Nelson's authority. That could be why he's tripling down with his talk to the mission presidents last week. So, yeah, it's this method that you piece together the evidence. And as you can see, you have to do a lot of research. You can't just stop with a few things you pick up here and there. Because there's a whole bigger reality about what really happened. Because guess what? I told you that the Book of Mormon's encoded. Well, what is it decoded then? Gave you some clues. 2 extra children being born in the wilderness. Yeah, Lehi is senior. So who's Nephi? Who's Nephi that sees Jesus? He's the son of Nephi. Book of Mormon, in the 116 pages, says, hey, there's going to be a Joseph who is a son of Joseph. Nephi, son of Nephi, is made Christ by the Gospels Jesus, historical Jesus, who was made historical by Constantine, and who made all the sites historical for this historical Jesus, created 300 AD at the Nicene Council with the Nicene Creed, where he came up with a brand new Greek word that he made up himself, homoousios. It was 325 technically. And so now you can take that information and go to the first vision, where it's personages who are Father and Son. Behold, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. But they never say Jesus and Heavenly Father. He says the Christian creeds, Nicene Council being the first, are an abomination. The historical Jesus is false. Do you see how much fun church history really is when you don't stop with a little bit of knowledge? There's a whole new paradigm, a whole new world. That is waiting for you guys. I'm trying to get it out there. I've got over 4,000 videos, I think, by now. So yeah, the information is huge. Don't stop. Keep going. And I know YouTube is purposely throttling my channel because they're white supremacists, as has been exposed. Not just protecting the church, they're protecting white supremacists too. So, yeah, like I said, yeah, I'm not even going to touch it until tomorrow. So, yeah, an hour.